Hi everyone. Welcome to the lectures of this self-knowledge course. Today we will study lecture number 17 of Phase B, where we will be completing the study on the Dante's circles. We will continue talking about the process of involution, or the passage of souls through the region called the tritocosmos, once they have completed their 108 existences in a cycle, without having done the necessary work on themselves to awaken their consciousness and achieve the intimate self-realization of the being. This process is absolutely necessary so that the soul, already completely blackened by all the psychological defects formed during its passage through the mineral, vegetable, animal, human and humanoid kingdoms, can be cleansed. Since in these Dante's circles, each one of our psychological defects will be painfully disintegrated into its own law, thus freeing each of the essences trapped by the ego. Although because this process of disintegration of the ego is not done consciously and voluntarily, all the wisdom from that turn around the wheel of samsara is lost. At the end of this process will remain 3% of free essence and 97% of innocent and catchable essence, to start a new cycle, a new turn in the wheel of samsara. In the previous lecture, we saw the first part of the involution process. We saw circles 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5, where we saw the sentences suffered by the lazy, fornicators, those given to pleasures and sufferings, the greedy and the angry. And those circles had a peculiarity, and that is that those whose faults were instinctive go there. They are mistakes that even an animal can commit. The animal is a fornicator, given to pleasures, it is greedy, angry. However, in the circles that we will see in this lecture, the condemned are judged more strongly, since these faults are already of an intellectual nature, therefore there is more perversity. Likewise, the number of laws, materiality, and pain multiplies frighteningly. The sixth circle is the submerged sphere of Jupiter. Jupiter is known as the giver of the solar system, generous and altruistic. In contrast, in this circle we will find all the tyrants, hoarders and all the atheists and materialists. We are going to find that this circle is subject to 3072 laws. And here we find the selfish, atheists, materialists, the enemies of the eternal, the blasphemers, those who hate everything that has the flavor of divinity. We find there also the heretics, those who deserted some group, and then sought to destroy it through slander and scandal, the hoarders and the great tyrants. Those who in life were dictators, or had many people under their command, and abused their power, subdued them, although they always believed they were benefactors. Since that is a characteristic of the tyrant, they run over the rights of others, believing they know what is right or better for others. But we also find here the small tyrants, those who abuse their power against their employees, and those lousy parents who, although they think they are very correct, put their children in need, force them to eat what they don't like and study what they don't want. They want to put religion into their children with sticks and straps, or they manipulate them psychologically. Honest and sincere people, but terribly wrong, who make life bitter in their homes. We also find those religious, or those who aspired to self-realization, who gave a good appearance with their brothers but sowed terror in their homes. Dante Alighieri tells us in his Divine Comedy that the damned in this circle are among tombs wrapped in a sea of flames, that represent all those concepts in which they were locked up, their own passions, hatreds and limitations. Time runs frighteningly slow in this region. Every minute seems like centuries, and therefore, life becomes tedious and unbearable. The seventh circle is the submerged sphere of Saturn. This circle is subject to 6144 laws. Here the condemned are physically passing through the involutionary plant kingdom. And in this circle, we are going to find all the violent ones. In the fifth circle we saw the angry ones, but that anger was an instinctive, brute anger. Here is manifested the violence with which the intellect seeks to destroy and profane all that is sacred. In this circle we find all the violent against God, those who out of arrogance and pride, blaspheme against what they themselves recognize as the superior, the divine. Those who disobey their own being. Those who spit against the divinity and who suppose that they can exist without divine grace. We also find there those who are violent against the Holy Spirit and art. That is, those who are violent against sexual energy and sexual practice. Those who carried out practices that distorted the sacredness of sex, such as oral sex, anal sex, masturbation, pornography, homosexuals, those who had sex with animals, pedophiles, necrophiles, etc. Also, those who used violence in sexual practice, who forced or manipulated the partner to have sex when they did not want it, those who forced themselves to have sex when they were not in the disposition to do so. To those who didn't respect the magnetic pauses, those who had sex during the period of pregnancy and lactation, or during the menstrual period, and those who didn't wait a day between one sexual practice and the other but who had sex more than once a day. Also, the celibate, those who abhorred sex, the confirmed bachelors. In short, all those who attempted against sex. There we find both those who reject sex and those who abuse it. The sentence in this circle occurs in an atmosphere of total violence, blows, blood, centrifugal force. There are rivers of boiling blood where the violent must suffer within the cauldron of their own blood lit by anger. When someone tries to get out of there are thousands who pierce them with arrows and have to submerge again. While those who are violent against God and against nature are naked in the sand, where a rain of fire constantly falls on them, and they run everywhere without being able to dodge the embers. This rain of fire represents their own spitting against the divine. We also find in this circle those who are violent against others and their property, the murderers, the thieves. And we find the violent against nature. Those who for pleasure or convenience, adulterated or damaged what is natural, polluting the waters, the air, the ground, adulterating food. Those who castrate animals or castrate themselves, or have their partners castrated, in order to continue fornicating freely. There is also violence against nature when we violate our own nature by changing our sex. We also find in this circle those who are violent against themselves, those who commit suicide. And those who, in order to satisfy themselves, harm themselves by eating what harms them, or starving their bodies. Suicidal fall into a dark forest and remain as plants whose branches are broken by horrible birds called harpies, that represent all those justifications that led them to commit violence against themselves. And every time a branch is broken, they experience pain as if they were ripping off a limb. In the eighth circle we find the submerged sphere of Uranus. This circle is subject to 12,288 laws. In this submerged region, the process of ossification, crystallization, mineralization, and destruction of the entire ego begins. In this circle dwell the liars and falsifiers, and all those who attempt against the truth. The counterfeiters of money, the false alchemists and the false prophets, the false masters who with lies led many to perdition by promising them heaven. We find here all those who practice black tantrism and negatively awakening the fire, developing that inverted serpent, have awakened for evil. Even knowing that they must involute within the bowels of the world, until the second death before achieving the restoration of the purity of the psychic material, they do not repent of the chosen path, because they have made their involution and the fatal wheel of samsara religion, a mystic. In this region, the damned are devoured by the horrible Pythian serpent, which is the negative aspect of the Divine Mother, with the purpose of destroying them, disintegrating them, and reducing them to cosmic dust to liberate the essence. The ego must always be dissolved at all costs, with or against our will. Inevitably the serpent must swallow us, either victorious or unsuccessful. The ninth circle is the submerged sphere of Neptune. This circle is subject to 24,576 laws. In this circle the involuting creatures definitively disintegrate. It is in this circle where the traitors are reduced to ashes. And we must remember that all involuting creatures have fallen into involution, because they have betrayed their own consciousness. There are many types of treason, but some are so serious that they are actually punishable by death. In this case, the traitor is immediately disincarnated, and his body is left in the hands of some demon. The cosmic executioners carry out the sentence and such unfortunate people immediately disincarnate, passing to the ninth Dante's circle, although their physical bodies do not die, since it is known that any demon replacing the traitor remains inserted between his body. This in order that the karmic processes of those people or family members who in one way or another are related to such perverse personalities are not altered. Although it may seem incredible, there are currently many undead roaming the streets of cities, whose true owners now live in the hell worlds. Thus, the judges of heavenly justice condemn traitors with the death penalty. This are known as empty houses. People without consciousness. In the ninth circle is the well of the universe, the center of planetary gravity. There the entire ego is completely reduced to cosmic dust. It is worth remembering that in the ninth submerged sphere, the creative organs of the human species have their full representation. No one could go up without having first taken the trouble to go down. Every exaltation is preceded by a terrible and frightful humiliation. Going down to the ninth sphere is essential. Those who aspire to the path of self-realization descend in life by their own will, spontaneously and for their intimate self-realization, and others, the majority, the multitudes, do it unconsciously when they descend into the abyss of perdition. The sentence there is to be submerged in icy wells until completely frozen. There in the farthest place from the sacred absolute sun, the cold is so terrible that they end up disintegrating completely down to the last detail of the ego. Once the last breath is exhaled, the essence, the psychic material, what we have of soul, remains free, without ego, because, as we already said, the latter is reduced to cosmic dust. And once the essence is emancipated, it assumes a beautiful children's figure, full of radiant beauty. At that time the devas of nature examine the liberated essence. And after having verified that he no longer possesses any subjective element, they grant him freedom. Once the creature is free on the epidermis of our world, it restarts a new evolution. Then he becomes a gnome or pygmy of the mineral kingdom. It will continue later its evolution ascending through the plant and animal scales, until reconquering in a distant day, the state of intellectual humanoid to attempt its self-realization again. And well, until here the explanation of the Dante's circles. The important thing, and the reason for this conference, is that we give value to the work of psychological death, that we understand the importance of willingly doing the work of eliminating each of our negative ways of being from ourselves. The next conference that we will see will be number 18 of Phase B, where we will talk about Theosophy, Spiritism and Medium. There we will understand why the schools do not allow us to reach the self-realization of the being. Thank you very much and see you next time.